investigates. Shame on You with Al Sunshine and Dr. Steve Greenberg's Health Watch reports. Together, they're solving problems and getting results for you. At Channel 6 Action News, we're earning our reputation, one story at a time. At Channel 6, if you want to sit here, you can't just sit around.
We can tell you this,
That's why Ken Matz is earning a reputation for going to the scene, getting personally involved, and tackling sensitive issues.
So what is the immediate answer?
If we expected anything less, he wouldn't sit still for it.
Good evening, I'm Ken Matz.
Ken Matz on Channel 6 Action News. We're earning our reputation, one story at a time.
This one-hour special edition of America Tonight continues. Here again is Charles Kuralt.
Kuwait has just celebrated its National Day, the 30th anniversary of Kuwait's liberation from the British. And Kuwaiti exiles in Bahrain gathered to celebrate. In their homeland, British troops, of course, are among those fighting tonight to liberate them again. Kuwaiti officials sent out the word to Kuwait government employees all over the world to get ready to come home and go back to work.
One of the unstated goals of the war has been driving Saddam Hussein out of power, whether by a direct hit, insurrection by his own people, or a military coup. Joining us, Rashid Haladi, professor of Middle East history at the University of Chicago, and Jeffrey Kemp, former member of the Reagan National Security Council. Many people assume that when this is all over, Saddam Hussein will be out of power by one means or another. Do either of you gentlemen think that he can possibly survive? Professor Haladi?
I think it's unlikely, Leslie, but I think there is a small chance. I think, paradoxically, the harder the United States pushes, the more clear it is that the United States is making this a war aim, the more chance that Saddam Hussein and his regime have of clinging to power. But on balance, I don't think that that chance is very great.
I think he'll be out by the 4th of July, if we're talking about celebration days, Leslie.
Okay. If Saddam Hussein is overthrown, who will take over? There are people who say that if it's anybody in his own inner circle, that's unacceptable. Who's left? Professor?
Well, this is not just a one-man regime. This is a very powerful, very deeply rooted regime. There's a party and there's an army. And I have a feeling that it's going to take a lot of pounding to get that party out of power.
The Ba'athist Party.
The Ba'ath Party, precisely. And it is a party that has controlled the army very tightly. Now, the result of this war may, one way or another, affect that. If Iraqis feel that their country is threatened, that the heart of their country is threatened, they may rally around that army and around that party. Otherwise, there is a possibility of the whole state structure collapsing, in which case you would have various opposition factions that might have a chance of seizing power.
And the army and the Ba'athist Party are aligned. They wouldn't separate in this case, and the military be a separate force?
That is a possibility. In the past, Iraq has suffered from enormous instability, with the army taking power, sometimes simply generals seizing power for themselves. The past 15 or 20 years, though, have seen very strict party control over the army, and I think one of the reasons the United States supported Iraq for so many years is that this regime brought a certain kind of brutal but clear stability to Iraq. The thing that I always wonder about is, if the regime is overthrown, are we going to look back on the days of the Ba'ath Party with all of its evils as the good old days? Because the parties in opposition are not necessarily very friendly to the United States.
Jeffrey Kemp, the White House has been putting out the signal that if the Ba'athist Party or this current regime remains in power, they'll have to pay reparations, the embargo will stay in effect. Do you see anybody else conceivably who could take over?
Well, I think in the short run, there are going to be army officers who would like to string Saddam up by his neck, along, I think, with the Iraqi Air Force, whose contribution to this war has not been stunning. But the problem is that Iraq's going to face enormous structural and human problems when the fighting stops. And someone is going to have to help put the country back together. And what I think we need to be talking about is that we're the ones that's going to have an army stretching probably to the Euphrates. With the equipment and the know-how and the capability, it could well be, in an ironic sense, that it's the United States Army who has to help put Iraq back together just to get it functioning before there can even be another government.
See, I keep asking people about whether our army is going to have to stay there, and you're the first person who seems to be suggesting that that's going to be a serious possibility.
Well, I think we're going to have forces in Iraq until there's a government in Baghdad we can deal with on all
occupying.
Well, not occupying, but sort of occupying territory. And there's going to be an American army in Kuwait for a long time to put it back together.
Professor, yeah.
I'll say it for you, Leslie. Occupying. It will be an occupying army. It will be regarded as an occupying army. And it will be a problem because what we've done to Iraq, we've kept out of our minds and to a very large extent off our TV screens. The Iraqis are going to perhaps blame their government, and they may take out some of their rage on their government, but they will mainly blame the United States. And the United States, I think, will be keeping troops in southern Iraq and maybe other parts of Iraq.
Jeffrey Kemp, will the American people put up with us keeping troops over there for an extended period of time?
No, of course not. And that's where I think our Arab allies are going to have to play an important role. But the fact of the matter is...
And will the American people go along with paying any money to repair Iraq at this point?
No, I think what we will do is contribute to humanitarian assistance. If there are people starving and children dying, we'll be wonderfully generous. We always are when wars end. And that's what you're going to see. And you're going to see congressmen going over to Kuwait wanting to redesign the democracy, a new democracy in our image. I think all the post-war problems are going to be much more tougher to deal with than this military exercise, which is brilliant and successful and is going to be a resounding triumph.
Gentlemen, we'll have to have you back to do part 2 on the future of Iraq and Kuwait. Thank you both very much, Jeffrey Kemp and Professor Holliday. Charles?
We are sorry to have to tell you that John Daly has died. He covered World War II and the White House for CBS News. Then in the 1950s, he became famous as host of What's My Line? And in the 60s, he was director of The Voice of America. John Daly was 77.
In just a few brief hours of playtime, a young body can use up lots of vitamin C, magnesium, vitamin B6, and valuable potassium. All of which, as nature would have it, can be replaced by eating one Chiquita banana. It's the ideal way to nourish an imagination. Chiquita, quite possibly the world's perfect food.
Now, learn to read with Hooked on Phonics. Because Hooked on Phonics is set to music, the right and left brain work together with dramatic reading results. After learning one 18-minute lesson, it's possible to read Book 1, over 120 pages. So for the beginner or anyone needing reading help, get Hooked on Phonics and learn to read. Call 1-800-ABCDEFG, 1-800-ABCDEFG.
America Tonight will continue.
Cents a minute, $2 first minute. 1-900-HOT-ONES.
When you enter the news at Channel 6, you don't just sit behind a desk. You get to the scene. You get to the source. And when you do it right, you get to the heart of the story. For Giselle Fernandez, news isn't just something you report. It's something you feel.
Getting the facts is important, but the real job is finding the truth.
At Channel 6 Action News, we're earning our reputation, one story at a time.
The American people support this war in overwhelming numbers, according to a CBS News New York Times poll out tonight. And reading between the lines, the public would support the president if he pressed on despite Saddam Hussein's offer to withdraw. When asked if the U.S. should continue fighting till Saddam Hussein is removed from power, a solid majority, 58%, said yes. 75% of our sample said President Bush was right to start the ground war. More than half believe the war is worth the ultimate price, the loss of several thousand American lives. There is also extraordinary support for George Bush. 87% approve of the job he's doing as president. The last commander-in-chief to rate that high was Harry Truman after VE Day and the end of World War II.
Blessed are the peacemakers, the Bible says, but peacemakers do not finish high in the polls when there's a war on. One United States senator, however, still speaks out against the war. It is an old American tradition. Everybody sang "The Yanks Are Coming" as American troops marched off to World War I. Crowds cheered. In the Senate, one man did not cheer. Robert M. La Follette of Wisconsin voted against the declaration of war. He was censured by his state legislature. 320,000 American casualties later, people remembered La Follette's prediction that the war would be a meat grinder. Why is this war to be fought? La Follette asked before it started. After it was over, nobody had a good answer. When the shooting started in Vietnam, the Senate voted yes, except for two lonely members. Old Ernest Greening of Alaska voted no.
Why should we sacrifice the lives of American young men for people who themselves do not want to fight?
Greening was mocked and satirized. His patriotism was called into question.
I think that killing American boys in South Vietnam constitutes an unconstitutional act on the part of the United States government. It's a shocking thing that we, by compulsion, are sending boys to their death in South Vietnam.
And Senator Wayne Morse of Oregon, Greening's only ally in the Senate, was branded a coward and a fool. Years later, when Vietnam was judged an American calamity, the voices of two lonely senators were recalled.
Well, I left the briefing more convinced than ever that the State Department's program in South Vietnam is completely bankrupt.
In the days just before the Persian Gulf War started, a lonely voice was heard again in the Senate of the United States.
Maybe it'll be over in a matter of hours, or a matter of days, or a matter of weeks at the outside. Even if it is, at what cost? At what cost in human lives?
It was the voice of Senator Mark Hatfield, Republican of Oregon.
How many lives can we accept? 100? 1,000? 10,000? And who decides? Who decides how many lives lost a family can accept? Who is prepared to tell a grieving widow that her husband's life was part of the loss we deemed acceptable?
USA all the way! USA all the way!
Since then, the country has been swept away by a wave of war enthusiasm not seen in nearly 50 years. The opinion of Senator Hatfield that the war is wrong has been drowned by voices proclaiming it right. Not many people listened to him that day on the Senate floor, and not many people are listening to him now.
We must be able to look at our young men and women now on the front lines and tell them that their lives are a legitimate price to pay. Mr. President, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm not prepared to do that now, and I will not be prepared to do that in the future. 6 months, no, not 6 months from now. 12 months, no, not 12 months from now. Never, never.
That was last month. Now that the war is on, Senator Hatfield wants it to succeed, of course. He just thinks it never should have started. I talked with him just this afternoon. Senator Hatfield, before this war started, you said on the floor of the Senate, this is not a war our country should fight, not for oil, not for pride, not for anything else. Do you still feel that way?
Yes. I think the cost is too high. I think the cost of fighting any war is always too high. Not only the loss of human life, but the costs surrounding the use of ammunition and equipment. We're spending about $1 billion a day, and I think that there were signs that we could have read to avoid this as we could avoid most wars.
Well, what is it about the war exactly that you object to, Senator?
I think that whenever you use war as an instrument of foreign policy, it's a sign of failure. I think that we could have seen that the unresolved Palestinian issue that has existed out there for so many years is one of the causes, one of the forces that we ignored. I think the fact that we have grown more dependent upon oil, putting a high priority on that oil, that we were really willing to risk war in order to sustain that oil supply, was something we should not have done. And thirdly, and you cannot unscramble the egg, but certainly we ought to learn from these problems, that we ought to address the distinction between the haves and the have-nots, that will never let stability rise in any area of the world. When you have $600 per capita income Egyptian soldier fighting to free up a $15,000 per capita income of a Kuwaiti, you obviously have causes of instability that gave rise to Saddam Hussein.
If Saddam Hussein is weakened or deposed, if the war is fought with very few American and Allied casualties, and peace is restored to the Middle East, will it have been worth it?
Well, again, you know, to those 150 American lives that have been lost, considering both those in action and those in accidents that have occurred since our presence out there, none of those 150 lives were worth it.
Senator Hatfield, we are not used to politicians talking like you are talking. You have a constituency in Oregon. Presumably that constituency is about 80% in favor of the war, the way Americans everywhere else are.
I would think so.
Aren't you afraid they're just going to vote you out of office next time?
No, I feel that people of Oregon are used to independent political representation. I come in a heritage of our state. I think that also people will ultimately say to a politician, I may disagree with you, but if you tell me your honest, straightforward opinion and conviction, I will respect that.
Last question. You oppose the war, but this country is in it now to fare thee well. What would you do now?
Well, as I say, I would move as quickly as possible to achieve whatever the objective, and I hope the objective is just to drive them out of Kuwait, the Iraqi military forces. But I would also say what we can do now is begin to plan for that future. And I want to emphasize again, I support our fighting people there. I have to support them. Anybody with conscience has to support them, even though I still disagree with the policy that sent them there.
Thank you very much for joining us, Senator Hatfield. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
American casualties killed in action, wounded, missing, prisoners of war number 231 tonight. Most people would say that's not too many. Mark Hatfield says the first one was one too many. Leslie and I will be right back.
When you rinse first with Plax, normal everyday brushing takes on a whole new meaning. Plax, clinically proven to remove more plaque than brushing alone.
This is the sound of Unisom, the sound of sleep. With Unisom, you hit your pillow and fall asleep fast. Tonight, you can sleep more soundly with Unisom, America's #1 sleep aid.
When life's little irritations are everywhere you turn, more people turn to Visine. When eyes need it most, it's the most trusted name for relief. Visine gets the red out and a whole lot more. And when your eyes feel extra dry and irritated, they need extra relief. Visine Extra gets the red out, plus an extra medication soothes, cools, and moisturizes dry, irritated eyes. Visine gets the red out and a whole lot more.
The ground war grinds on as the Allies press the battle to free Kuwait. Dan Rather reports from Saudi Arabia tomorrow on the CBS Evening News.
From the current true crime bestseller, a riveting story of modern-day piracy and murder.
Did you kill Mac or Muff Graham?
Learn the startling facts behind the crime.
She lied to us.
They've reached a verdict. And the sea will tell. Tuesday,
America Tonight will continue.
Real confessions, real secrets revealed for you to hear.
Wasn't fair. I didn't deserve that.
Call 1-900-230-3333 to hear real confessions from real people. Plus, find out how to make your own confession.
We had a great relationship, then at a cocktail party.
Incredible secrets, untold stories, real confessions. Call 1-900-230-3333. Call now. Just $2 the first minute, $1 each additional. Adults only, please.
In this world, there are two kinds of haircuts, supercuts and other cuts. The difference is our exclusive supercuts technique. Someday, everyone will cut hair the way we do. But till then, if it isn't a supercut, good luck.
Political unrest forces Haitians to flee to Miami.
The situation for all of these people...
Channel 6's Giselle Fernandez goes to Haiti to get the story. The United States fights in Panama.
On the streets of Panama...
She travels there to get the story. And as war rages in the Persian Gulf, Giselle Fernandez flies to Israel, talks to friends and loved ones of South Florida families to get the story. Giselle Fernandez goes to the source and gets the story. Channel 6 Action News. We're earning our reputation, one story at a time.
Looking ahead to tomorrow, Barbara Bush will visit the Marine base in Quantico, Virginia to take part in a special program for families of Marines stationed in the Gulf. In Fort Dix, New Jersey, graduation ceremonies will be held for 212 Kuwaiti nationals who took a crash military training course. After graduating, they'll join the Allied forces in the Persian Gulf. And a grim report in tomorrow's Los Angeles Times says that as much as 25% of Kuwait's civilian population may be dead, injured, or suffering from diseases like cholera or dysentery.
For months, we've been receiving almost daily messages from a brave man in Kuwait City who gets them out to us at considerable risk to himself. In October and November, he sent us descriptions of caravans of Iraqi trailer trucks looting houses, hospitals, and schools. In December, they are kidnapping and torturing boys, even children. Then they knock on the door of the house. When the parents come to the door, they shoot their son in the head and leave him dead on the doorstep. A month ago, the bombs are falling everywhere around us. These explosions are frightening, but they mean our deliverance. Last week, the oil fires are choking us. The enemy is setting Kuwait on fire. We are almost out of water and food. The killing of civilians and the torture of young people is a daily routine. Everybody sends this cry to the civilized world: SOS. Today, no electricity, no water. I cannot go out. Many places are on fire. The bombing is continuous. The sounds of all kinds of weapons are very close to us. Everybody is happy in Kuwait. Good night, Leslie.
Good night, Charles. Night, everyone.
For those of you who have been reluctant to wear a hearing aid, Miracle Ear has more great news. If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
In a restaurant situation, it picks up the noises I want to hear, but the other noises are just moved off into the background.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
It really makes a lot of difference in your way of hearing and in your way of life.
Call this number. Miracle Ear will send you a booklet on better hearing, plus a coupon for a free hearing test. Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
A lot of people don't even know you got it, especially the one I got, the design that I got.
Call this number. Find out if Miracle Ear can help you.
Last night, America watched a powerful bestseller become a television event. Don't miss the startling conclusion, and the sea will tell tomorrow night.
Trapped in a real-life nightmare of multiple personalities.
It's like having amnesia. Not knowing who you are.
There's only one way out, a harrowing journey through her own past. The Many Faces of Marcia, a special 48 hours, Wednesday at 10, 9 Central and Mountain.
It's the only party where you don't have to dress up.
They get to know the real me, and it's important to know what someone's really like.
It's hard to meet friendly girls. That's why I call.
You know something? It's the best party I've ever been to.
People from where you live, waiting to talk to you now. 98 cents a minute. Call now.
Weather school watch is in effect. Hi, I'm Channel 6 weather forecaster Maria Gennaro. Be on the lookout for students who suddenly have a flash of interest in weather science, whose ordinary classrooms are electrified with computer software, and whose overworked teachers get a charge out of pre-planned lessons. Observe this phenomenon firsthand at your school starting March 4th. Just write to me for a free classroom kit and watch my forecast here on Channel 6 Action News.
Maria Gennaro's Weather School. It'll take your class by storm, and it's only on Channel 6.
Wednesday night, another America Tonight National Town Meeting. Call us with your questions or comments, and you can fax us at 212-975-7596.
Later on Night Watch, thousands of Iraqi POWs need to be fed, sheltered, and guarded. How is the overwhelming job being done? That and more on CBS News Night Watch.
This is CBS.
Cents a minute, $2 first minute. 1-900-HOT-ONES.
Dianetics by L. Ron Hubbard. Pick up a copy today, wherever paperbacks are sold.
The best in TV graphics from the United States and around the world. The best in computer graphics, animation, and more. Plus, state-of-the-art computer graphics equipment. It's the best of Design 90, February 13th through March 7th at the New Gallery, University of Miami. Call 284-2542.
A mother who wouldn't give up. Next, Inside Edition. Tonight at 7:30.
A country half a world away, yet the haunting cries of its children touch the hearts of many South Floridians. These are the littlest victims of Nicolau Ceausescu's cruel legacy. Thousands of abandoned children, many left to die. Anchorwoman Teresa Rodriguez uncovered the orphanage crisis in Guatemala. Now she teams up with Denver reporter Bill Stewart to look at one of the worst child neglect epidemics in the world, Romania, a cradle of sorrow. An exclusive focus report tonight at 6 and 11 on Channel 4 News.
It's perfection in paradise. The residences at the Alexander are the ultimate in luxurious oceanfront living. Spacious 1, 2, and 3 bedroom condominiums at Miami Beach's most prestigious address. As a hotel, the Alexander is the exclusive hideaway for upper echelon. As a home, it is the pinnacle. You can live the life only a few will be privileged enough to experience.
There's more to a diet than weight loss. The best diets encourage a commitment to healthy eating and regular exercise. If you're confused about what foods make up a low-fat, low-cholesterol, low-sodium diet, get a copy of the Miami Heart Institute Diet for a Lifetime. The diet follows the guidelines of the American Heart Association, the National Cholesterol Education Program, and the American Cancer Society. You'll lose weight, and your heart will thank you.
Pick up your free copy of the diet at any public supermarkets.
Now, the music of the night.
The power of the music of the night.
The music of Andrew Lloyd Webber. A spectacular theatrical concert. From Evita, Cats, Jesus Christ Superstar, Phantom of the Opera.
The music of Andrew Lloyd Webber. March 12th through the 24th at the Jackie Gleason Theater of the Performing Arts. Tickets are on sale now. Welcome by WTVJ Channel 4.
Tom Randall's on Channel 4 News at 6 and 11.
Good morning. Saddam Hussein has ordered his troops to get out of Kuwait. In an address on Baghdad radio this morning, he recalled his troops and declared that Kuwait was no longer part of Iraq. Saddam's radio message, in which he claimed a moral victory, followed an earlier promise from Baghdad that Iraq would comply with UN Security Council Resolution 660, which stipulates that the pullout be immediate and without condition. As they study the offer, U.S. officials are downplaying Saddam's announcement, and they are continuing to prosecute the war. But there are reports of Iraqi withdrawal, and Saddam is claiming that he'll be totally out of Kuwait today, Tuesday, February the 26th, 1991.
From NBC News, this is a special edition of Today, America at War, with Bryant Gumbel, Deborah Norville, and Joe Garagiola.
And good morning. Welcome to Today on a Tuesday morning. We hope we're not jumping the gun, but it certainly does seem like we greet you with good news on this morning, because if the end is not at hand, it is certainly within sight. Let's see if we can clear up exactly what we know. As you perhaps know, there was an announcement from Iraq early yesterday evening of Iraq's withdrawal. Now, Washington rebuffed that offer and demanded a personal statement from Saddam Hussein. That statement came this morning over Baghdad radio. The U.S. is reacting icily to that. We'll get reaction from the White House in a moment, but the U.S. is continuing to study that. In Baghdad, there is supposedly dancing in the streets. In Washington, officials are characterizing the movement of troops as a retreat, not withdrawal. They say the signs of retreat are a result of pressure from coalition attacks. And in Kuwait, there are unconfirmed reports of Iraqi evacuation of Kuwait City. Let's go to the front right now. Brad Willis is on a phone line from inside Kuwait. Brad, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. Good afternoon from Kuwait. I am at a crossroads in the middle of the desert, a mud crossroads, where there are huge convoys going in 3 different directions into Kuwait City. Armored personnel carriers rolling through the mud, trucks filled with supplies and provisions going there to begin the what's going to be a very painstaking process of rebuilding Kuwait. It has been a stormy day here throughout the day in Kuwait. We have crossed the border. We have seen some devastation at border checkpoints and in some villages. Apparently, the Iraqis shot up a lot of these places on their way in, and they shot them up and looted them again on their way out. The devastation is everywhere throughout the countryside. Right now, we are seeing Egyptian, Saudi, Qatari convoys queuing up in both directions. We have just gone past what seems to be more than 200 large passenger buses. Now, these are the empty buses. These are the same kind of buses that I saw during the battle for the Saudi coastal city of Kafji, taking out prisoners of war. After that battle, we can only assume that they are also into Kuwait to start taking the tens of thousands of prisoners that we hear have now surrendered in Kuwait. We will be pushing throughout the day towards Kuwait City and bringing you as many details as we can along the way.
Okay, Brad, let me ask you to hang on. Don't hang up the phone. We're going to come back to you in just one moment. We want to get to Baghdad before our satellite goes down there. We have a limited time allowance. Tom Aspel is standing by in Baghdad. Tom, good morning.
And spontaneous reaction from the people here to President Saddam Hussein's radio address this morning. In many of the quarters of Baghdad, people came out on the streets, hugging each other, kissing, some even firing shots in the air. It's worth noting also that Iraqi officials that we have talked to since the speech was broadcast have expressed a mood of relaxation, of confidence that the Iraqi forces will be allowed to pull back from Kuwait with their weapons intact. And in fact, one source told us that the withdrawal had begun before the first announcement late last night that the troops intended to pull back over the border. So the Iraqis do feel confident that the bulk of their army will be able to pull back across the frontier into southern Iraq from Kuwait with their weapons intact. Now, whether or not there are Allied forces to the north of them, and whether the Iraqis will be allowed to pull back into southern Iraq with those heavy weapons, tanks, artillery, etc., we just do not know at this stage. Also worth pointing out that Iraqi officials are depending on Soviet contacts with the Soviet Union via the embassy here to try and work out further details. First of all, to make sure that everything is intact for the pullback, and second, to establish some kind of formal ceasefire with the Allies. But the mood here in Baghdad at the moment is one of confidence, one of relaxation, and probably one of relief that the war may finally be over and that this whole question of Kuwait has been put behind Iraq. However, Saddam Hussein did point out in his radio speech that the fight for the nation of Iraq may only just be beginning. That's all we have from Baghdad at this point this morning.
All right, Tom Aspel in Baghdad, thanks very much. Let's go to the nation's capital, where it's worth remembering that just because Baghdad says the war is over, it doesn't necessarily make it so. Jim Miklashevsky is standing by, White House correspondent. Good morning, Mick.
Good morning, Bryant. There's a stark contrast in reactions between Baghdad and here. President Bush was up early this morning, called the Situation Room for an update. No official response yet from President Bush, but the initial response from the White House could be characterized in one administration official's statement. He said, after we've invested all that time, effort, and blood, we're not about to take a deal that we found unacceptable all along. Although there hasn't been an official response, the initial response is that this latest Saddam Hussein offer comes up short. There was no mention in that offer about accepting all the UN resolutions or the immediate release of POWs. And I must say, all signals out of the White House at this point are no one here is especially willing now to accept anything that looks like a partial diplomatic solution. In fact, just the opposite. It appears the White House now is interested only in the total military defeat of Iraq. The only way to bring about a ceasefire, according to officials now, is if Iraqi troops withdraw without their tanks, without their artillery. And to sum it up, according to one administration official, we didn't wade into this war to end up in a tie.
Jim, is it just the military defeat of Iraq the White House seems to want now and the destruction of Saddam's forces, or is it also the humiliation of Saddam?
Well, you can call it humiliation if you like, but it is, in fact, the total defeat of Saddam Hussein that is being sought here.
All right, Jim Miklashevsky, we're going to go on back to the front in Kuwait, where Brad Willis is still on the line. Brad, can you tell us anything about these unconfirmed reports of Iraqi evacuation from Kuwait City? What have you heard?
Well, we're a little bit outside of Kuwait City. We have heard those reports as well, Brian, but I think for now that they should stay unconfirmed. We know that we heard Saddam Hussein say that he was pulling out, but we have seen him pull many tricks before. Many expected there could be some house-to-house fighting inside Kuwait. One interesting thing that we are seeing now in the desert, in fact, two interesting things, if I might point them out. Huge engineering battalions, American and Saudi, are starting to roll into Kuwait. Now, these are the types that fix the roads, repair the buildings, and also some that look for mines. There are still some fear that there might be minefields out there, as of yet undetected. Another very interesting thing that we are starting to see, truckloads of Kuwaiti families. Men, children, all piled and tied to the back.
Okay, obviously that phone line is breaking up. We're going to try to reestablish contact with Brad Willis, who is moving towards the front. He is inside Kuwait. Let's go to the Pentagon right now, where Jamie Gangel is standing by. Jamie, we saw earlier that the Pentagon is characterizing this as a retreat, not a withdrawal, and they say the sign of retreat is a result of pressure from coalition attacks. Can we assume that the war then goes on?
Absolutely. As far as the Pentagon is concerned, Bryant, there is only one person who can stop this war, and that is President Bush, not Saddam Hussein. Military officials have told us this morning that it would be imprudent for commanders to lay down their weapons at this point because they just still don't know what's going to happen. We've just gotten this word from a Pentagon official, quoting now, "We must continue to prosecute the campaign until we are absolutely sure the withdrawal is true in both letter and spirit." The only word that we are getting, there is no official confirmation of any withdrawal here. The only word we're getting is from the British military, who say they are seeing mixed signs.
The division hasn't seen anything of it at all, of course, because they've been advancing so damn fast that even an Iraqi withdrawing couldn't beat them. And there are signs that the Iraqis are withdrawing, but that's outside the actual divisional area of operations.
And Brian, just a quick update on what we do know about what's going on in the battlefield. We are told that heavy bombing is continuing over southern Iraq. One official said it was business as usual, that they are still ahead of schedule. And apart from the Scud attack, we are told that casualties remain light. The official number of Americans killed in action remains at 4. And just one final note on who can retreat and who can't. The Pentagon has made it very clear this morning that any soldier who is in a tank will be considered armed. So tanks will be stopped.
So even if that tank is heading north, they will consider it armed?
Absolutely. What officials here are always quick to point out is, remember Khafji, where the reports were that the Iraqis were pretending to surrender, had turned their turrets on their tanks around, and then came out shooting. That may be just an excuse for another motive, which is we don't want them to go home with all of their tanks, but word here is tanks will not be able to go back.
Jamie, is there any feeling on the part of officials there that the Iraqi forces might move out of Kuwait, mass in Iraq, and get reorganized?
I don't know whether at this point that is a serious concern. I think that they are getting the sense that they have just rolled over Saddam Hussein's troops. But again, they have been emphasizing here in the last couple of days that if Saddam Hussein is going to stay in power, it's going to be with a much smaller, weaker military force.
All right, Jamie Gangel, the Pentagon, will come back in just a little bit. Let us note that Iraq asked the Soviet Union to arrange a ceasefire in order to accomplish this orderly withdrawal. The Security Council went into emergency session last night, but adjourned before a decision was made and before this latest announcement from Saddam Hussein. And so the UN still has a role to play. Let's go on over there right now. Correspondent Stephen Frazier is standing by. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. This was the mother of all diplomatic sessions here at the UN overnight, and as like the action on the battlefield, it all seems to be going the Allies' way. As you said, the Iraqi ambassador came here last night and said that Iraq would comply with Security Council Resolution 660, which calls for immediate, unconditional withdrawal. But he would not discuss the other 11 resolutions, which contain, among other things, assurances of Kuwait's sovereignty and a pledge to make reparations for war damage. The Iraqi ambassador wants to put off any discussion of those until other meetings. The other ambassadors did not buy that, not even the Soviet ambassador, who has been Iraq's best friend here in recent days. The Soviets, like the British and the Americans and other allies, want Iraq to comply with all 12 United Nations resolutions now before anyone will discuss any kind of ceasefire. So last night they rebuffed Iraq's effort. Now recall, Bryant, that the United Nations provided the authorization in diplomatic terms for any military action, and it is not now rushing to any conclusion of military action that is not coming exactly on its own terms. They'll be back later today to work some more, but so far the sides are no closer diplomatically.
All right, Stephen, let me come back to you in just a little bit, but at this hour we want to go to Moscow. We're standing by is the former Soviet Foreign Ministry spokesman, Gennady Gerasimov. Mr. Gerasimov, good morning.
Good morning.
Is it the Soviet Union's intention to now press for a ceasefire? Is it the Soviet Union's...
Sorry, the sound disappeared. Yes, is the Soviet Union?
Soviet Union's intention to now press for a ceasefire despite what seems White House rejection of Saddam's offer?
Well, we are now in the stage of end game, and I think that when Saddam Hussein really capitulated, any new victim is unnecessary. That's why we think that ceasefire is a good idea, including, of course, victims on the coalition side. So if Saddam Hussein fires another missile, it means that he's unsincere. But otherwise, we don't see why the United Nations cannot discuss ceasefire at the Security Council meeting, which, as I understand, is going to happen soon.
But the White House, it seems, is taking note of Saddam's lack of acceptance of UN Resolution 662, which annexes Kuwait, and the fact that it's also ignoring Resolution 674, which calls for compensation. Can it really be said that Saddam is complying with all UN wishes?
Well, we can find it out during the meeting of the Security Council. When he was talking to his people also over the radio, talking about withdrawing forces from Kuwait, he couldn't possibly find time to discuss all these resolutions, which sound a little bit too technical for ordinary people. But I think that, of course, we must demand that all the resolutions will be fulfilled, including resolution on compensation and on annexation.
The Soviet Foreign Minister Alexander Besmertnik says the Soviet Union will play a role in the post-war security in the Persian Gulf. Is it the Soviet Union's intention or willingness to send troops to the Gulf to take part in a peacekeeping force? Is that a possibility?
Well, it's too early. It's a premature specificity. In principle, we are for United Nations peacekeeping forces, and we see no reason why the Soviet Union cannot participate in this kind of forces in the Middle East or somewhere else.
Gennady Gerasimov in Moscow. Thank you very much, sir. Of course, the White House is in no mood, really, for a compromise, especially in the wake of a deadly Scud attack on Khobar City that left 27 dead and 98 wounded. Khobar City just outside of Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. Let's go to Dhahran right now. Tom Brokaw is standing by there this morning. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Brian. And in fact, this offer, and if it is in fact a withdrawal, it comes just about 18 hours too late for 28 American servicemen who were killed in that attack when Scud missile debris, possibly the warhead that might have been intercepted, hit their metal warehouse that had been converted into a barracks. This morning, the death toll is 28 dead, Brian, and 100 have been injured altogether. Many of them were packed and ready to go home. I'm sure that they felt that they were out of harm's way, working back from the border in what we think is probably a supply mission. Many of them were apparently assigned to that kind of duty. They were just sitting down to dinner when the Scud literally fell out of the sky. It was the most devastating attack yet on Americans, and the first attack by a Scud on an American target. It probably was not specifically targeted by that Scud missile, because there is still an indication this morning that it was successfully intercepted by the Patriot missile. It came on an overcast day, so if the Scud missile launcher was out in the desert somewhere, the American pilots didn't really have a great crack at it, although it may have been launched from Baghdad itself.
Tom, what's it done to the feeling of security there, which had existed in Dhahran? And I know people, including the press, had felt somewhat safe there.
Well, when that Scud launch was first announced yesterday, we all rushed out here as we do regularly. We keep the gas masks at the ready. Some people went down to the bomb shelter, but I dare say that everyone had gotten to be very, very casual about it indeed, and I think that the tension went up perceptibly after that, but there's not much you can do about it because these things literally rain from the sky. It's like getting hit by a bolt of lightning. You have about that much control over it.
All right, Tom Brokaw in Saudi Arabia. Thanks very much. And again, in Kuwait, the war goes on. U.S. and coalition forces continue to press the attack with very few casualties and with great success against the Iraqi forces. We have unconfirmed reports that the Iraqis have evacuated Kuwait City, and British officials are saying that troops are heading north, but the White House is reacting coolly to Saddam's offer to get out of Kuwait, but Saddam continues to maintain that he will be out by the end of this day. We're going to come back in just a moment, continue to follow the events in the Gulf when we come back. 17 past the hour. This is Today on NBC.
What do you call a car that has learned to use the wind? A car designed to settle in when you race into it head on, and stabilize when it buffets you from the side. Road and Track called it one of the 10 best cars in the world. But it is probably better known as the Infiniti Q45.
Make a splash with your family at Ocean World. Spend a morning or an afternoon. It doesn't take all day. Cruise the Intercoastal on Miss Ocean World. Thrill to our entertaining shows and discover the wonders of the sea. Get up close to marine life, exotic birds, and other fascinating creatures that share our world with us. Come, bring your family, your friends, your out-of-town guests, and get ready for the most fun at Ocean World in Fort Lauderdale.
Do certain women possess a beauty secret you do not? Yes. New DuPont Certified Stainmaster Luxura Carpet. It's richer, it's thicker, and it's Stainmaster.
For bargains you won't believe, come to Harry Rich Carpet's beautiful showrooms, North University Drive, Lauderhill, or Biscayne Boulevard, Miami. Come today.
Tonight, Could you read a book if many of its chapters were missing? Would you understand the story? African-American heritage has played an important role in the history of civilization, yet it's been largely excluded from our history lessons. Until now. Broward schools that are sharing the dream. A Channel 4 News Focus Report tonight at 5:30.
Christian Brando's confession tape. Moments after he shot a man dead, he made this confession tape, only on hard copy.
Weekdays at 4:30 after Personalities.
Before we were even able to re-examine the tactical military maneuvers used by Allied forces in this two-day ground war, the withdrawal by Iraqi troops forces the Pentagon to face the daunting and confusing task of overseeing thousands of Iraqi soldiers leaving Kuwait. Military analyst James Dunnigan joins us again this morning to explain all this, Tess. Mr. Dunnigan, the Pentagon has said this is a retreat, not a withdrawal. So if Iraqi soldiers try to leave, they will be taken as EPWs, and if they're in their tanks, they will be engaged?
According to the latest statement I've heard, if any Iraqi soldier can get up here on foot, they'll let him cross the border, and we won't have to worry about him as a prisoner. The big problem is the several 100,000 Iraqi soldiers down here who were bypassed, many of whom don't even know what's going on. We'll probably have to take them prisoner because there's no way they can physically get up there in 24 hours or 12 hours, as the case may be.
So if the war continues, it will be very difficult for Saddam Hussein to make good on his promise that he'll be out of Kuwait by the end of the day.
Like everything else Saddam has said, you know, it's more fiction than fact.
Well, how would you describe the battlefield at this point?
Chaotic.
Mass confusion?
Chaotic. I mean, especially on the Iraqi side. And, of course, the thing you have to keep in mind is that we have occupied most of southern Iraq, at least the non-populated areas, you know, about 100 or so miles outside of Baghdad. That bodes ill because it means there may be a second phase to the battle for Iraq.
And their command and control facilities or apparatuses have been degraded to such a point that some of these soldiers may not even get the word that they're supposed to withdraw.
No, apparently the only means the Iraqis have of commanding their troops now is making announcements over the radio in the open.
And some of them don't have radios.
Exactly. So it's utter chaos. The only units Saddam has left are the 4 Republican Guard divisions in the vicinity of Baghdad.
And we've got blocking forces to deal with them, don't we? We have three blocking forces set up in Iraq.
Exactly. We could probably take Baghdad in a couple of days. There'd be some fighting. It would be a lot worse than anything in Kuwait, but that apparently is one of the options we're dealing with now.
Mr. Dunnigan, thank you again for joining us. We're back in a moment with more on Today after this.
In the midday sun, a gentle breeze, the embrace of white eyes, remember these, the touch, the feel, the fabric of our lives, the touch, the feel of cotton, the fabric of our lives.
Today, there's a diet pill that can help you lose weight without caffeine to make you nervous.
All my life I've been struggling with my weight. With Dexatrim, I finally lost weight and without being hungry.
No matter what else you've tried, Dexatrim can help you lose weight. Just one works all day, morning through bedtime, to control your appetite and help you lose weight.
Dexatrim did it for me. I lost weight and feel great.
Today's caffeine-free Dexatrim. Nothing works harder to help you lose weight. Nothing.
When creating the new G20 midsize luxury sedan from Infiniti, these were just a few of the amenities we kept in mind. Seating surfaces that are fitted with leather, a cabin that heightens the level of comfort and stretches the limits of space. Of course, with 16 valves and 140 horsepower, that mind also has an alter ego.
Do your friends like to party, especially on their birthdays? Well, if you can't attend one, send one. Just call or visit your FTD florist, the only one who can send a birthday party bouquet almost anywhere. Send a party today.
It's Red Lobster's new lunch special. Shrimp and chicken, just $3.99. Golden fried shrimp and grilled chicken breast with salad and baked potato, just $3.99 for a limited time at Red Lobster for lunch.
There are always some humorous notes in the middle of the toughest of situations. Evidently, the Allied troops found one amid the 22,000 Iraqis taken prisoner. They found one guy in Bermuda shorts, T-shirt with a Chicago accent. And they came upon him. He asked them, he said, "Where the hell have you guys been? I came home to visit my grandmother, and they re-enlisted me in the Army." He's coming home. Back after a station break.
Good one.
The ground war breaks in the Gulf, and NBC News is there. Tom Brokaw and John Chancellor in Saudi Arabia. Brian Gumbel, Jane Pauley, and Gary Cutley at home. Count on NBC News.
I've got a sinus headache right now, and it just will not go away. It almost feels like my cheekbones are bruised back in here.
Today, Lynn Keeper is trying Tylenol Sinus.
The pain is gone. The pressure is gone. I didn't know Tylenol made a sinus medication. This is wonderful.
Tylenol Sinus, the strength you need from the name you trust. And now look for new Tylenol Sinus gel caps. Maximum strength, concentrated, and gelatin-coated so they're easy to swallow. Only from Tylenol, the first sinus gel cap.
Pick up number 3.
Give me a cider walking through the garden. Get a hitch in your get up. Where's my number 13?
Ah, put a lid on your flapper. Pick up number 4.
At Channel 4, we've got your number because we're your official Florida lottery station. The only place where you can see the Cash 3 game. Monday through Saturday at 7:57. We've got your number.
I said pick up number 4.
Teresa Rodriguez, weekdays on Channel 4 News at 5:30.
Watch our teamwork. Channel 4 News.
From your 24-hour news source, this is Today in South Florida.
Good morning, I'm Marianne Murciano. We'll get the morning started with a look at traffic. There's a little bit of rain out there. Joe Brennan was watching things for us. Joe, what do you see?
All right, so far we see a lot of rain, a lot of wet roadways out there, Marianne. It looks as if travel southbound 95 through the Golden Glades interchange moving a little slowly now, definitely a lot slowly down towards 125th Street. Also northbound Palmetto, not a whole lot easier to get by up towards the Dolphin Expressway this morning. It's quite congested. So far in Broward County, southbound 95 Atlantic Boulevard, accident there, overturned vehicle, not too bad a delay though. We do have some other delays. State Road 7 at Oaks Road, accident. Another one, Sunrise Boulevard at 34th Avenue. Marianne, that's a check on Channel 4 News traffic. Back to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Joe. And Bob Weaver's taking a look at that weather that Joe's been talking about all morning long. Bob, what do you see out there?
Well, I see a lot of rainfall. First of all, here you see it all moving down through the state. We're going to have some pretty good showers around before this is all over. That'll get through here at least by tomorrow, and it's going to turn a little bit cooler. By the way, if you're driving anywhere today, please be careful. Leave a little bit early, and remember one thing, it's going to be with us for most of the day, so make those plans. Here's Marianne.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bob, and we'll be right back after this.
Eckerd pharmacist Patty Carr. She can make people feel better even without medicine.
Bye-bye, Patty. You get to feeling better, Bob, and we'll go dancing.
It takes a special kind of person to be an Eckerd pharmacist.
With all these umpteen-hundred different remedies, you could spend half an hour deciding what's right for the sniffles.
So, what can I do for you today? At Eckerd, your pharmacist always provides help with non-prescription medicines.
Most places, my cold would be over before I figured out what to take for it.
After reviewing the broad spectrum of leading economic indicators, it appears we have a financial softening in a variety of sectors.
The economy stinks.
Even market leaders have been impacted.
Honda dealers are loaded with Accords.
Ergo, we are encouraging minimization of margins.
They're selling the Accord EX for as little as 5% over cost.
And are pressuring a downward spiral in the discount rate.
And are offering 7.9% APR financing.
This aberration will be short-lived.
Hurry.
Lots of reaction this morning to Iraq's announcement that it is withdrawing from Kuwait. When the announcement came over Baghdad radio yesterday, Channel 4's cameras were in Liberty City, where relatives of troops watched intently. Most at Dade's Operation United Front say they're skeptical of any new Iraqi proposal.
It's a cat-and-mouse game, and really it's frustrating to the family. It's, in some instances, destroying some of the families because you're not sure what's going to happen.
Well, I thought it was just another trick. You know, I didn't take it to be real serious, because they keep coming with these little flaws and then they take it right back.
I really feel that what's going on is like a smoke screen, that he is really planning his main attack and that he's hoping probably to get the United States off guard.
Others at the meeting say the president should take any surrender offer seriously. Angry residents say no to making Dade's biggest landfill even bigger. The county says the landfill at Black Point will run out of room in a year. They want to expand to the west so the landfill will last 14 more years. But a big crowd showed up last night asking the Army Corps of Engineers to block those plans. The head of Biscayne National Park said leaking landfill pollution threatens the bay, and neighbors complain of all the smell.
Your eyes and your nose actually burn from being out in public because of that.
Expansion opponents cheered loudly, but their leaders doubt they'll get the project stopped. Former Florida Governor Bob Martinez's bid as the nation's drug czar begins today. Confirmation hearings are scheduled before the Senate Judiciary Committee. Tough questioning is expected. As governor, Martinez was known for his high-profile anti-drug policies, emphasizing punishment over prevention. That just about does it for us for right now. We'll be back at 8:25 for the latest on the local front. See you then.
Unlike big juice companies, we have a different idea about corporate ladders, mergers, even stockholders' meetings.
Bob?
Fresh and natural brand, not from trade orange juice, is made co-op growers, whose only business is